how long did you stay in the medically induced coma?
Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 2 months actually, and it was touch and go. So actually, the day of my brother's funeral, the doctors called my parents, and he was buried the 21st. And they're like, "You need to come right now."
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. We only show the world what we want them to see. We hide the characteristics that we see as deficient or less than favorable, trying to conform to what we believe the world wants to see. We are three separate people: the person that others see us as, the person we see in the mirror, and then there's the person we really are. It's a very rare thing to have all three of those people aligned. One day, if we're lucky, those three separate people will meet and hash out an agreement to become one. Our inner perceptions of ourselves begin to be displayed for all the world to see. We force ourselves and learn to be comfortable in our own skin so that we may become who we truly are meant to be. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, somebody who I've heard about for a long time, I recently met you, and you definitely exceeded all my expectations.
Thank you.
And that's Dejah-Maia DeJesus.
Yes.
See, that one just rolls right off the tongue. And we're going to talk tonight about the suffering of scars. Because your scars, although your physical scars happened a long time ago, your emotional scars lasted much longer. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
It's going to be great. So before we get into anything, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police officers or podcasters, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So Dejah, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Slither Baby.
Okay.
You're a young lady, recently graduated from school.
Yes.
What is your dream job?
For me, it is school psychology, to become a school psychologist. I would like to become a doctor. I love working with kids. I work with kids now. And so I think,
You want to become a psychologist?
school psychologist.
School psychologist.
Yes, a school psychologist. So I'll be specifically working in schools, but hopefully have my own practice, my own private practice. So that's my dream job.
Dream big or go home.
Exactly.
I love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. So it sounds like you have a passion
Yeah.
for psychology in general,
Yeah.
mental health field, all that types. And I know that comes from a place that's in your heart.
Yeah.
But here's the important thing, because this piggybacks into my answer. Do a job that's a purpose-driven life. Okay, that gives you some sort of feeling of fulfillment. And that's the best suggestion I can give anybody. Remember, I don't give people advice. I give people suggestions, because if you give people advice and you're wrong, you're going to be held to the fire. Yeah. But I like what I'm doing now. Okay? This is a purpose-driven life. I liked being a police officer. It was a purpose-driven life. I went home fulfilled. I didn't go in and just punch a clock. And I think too many people search for the wrong goal in life. They look for the money, they look for the fame, they look for the accolades, but it could be very hollow. If you have a job making $400,000 a year, but you go home just miserable, that $400,000 doesn't mean anything. But if you have a job making $40,000 a year and you go home and you can rest your head on the pillow, and as long as you have enough for you, man, that is the true definition of success, to have a purpose-driven job. So while this is not my full-time profession, I would love it to be my full-time profession, but you just have to figure out how to get from here to there.
Yep.
So someday we'll get there.
Oh, for sure.
So Slither Baby, thank you for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. And while you're at it, go see Gus over at Cubita Cafe. That's 234 Franklin Avenue. Gus is not in the food business. He's in the people business. And when you go there, you're going to see why. He treats you like family. If you're in there more than once, he will know your name. And you're going to also have some of the best food you've ever eaten. My kids constantly ask me to go there because of how he cooks, what he cooks, and it's just wonderful, Cuban food. You're going to hear a lot of Spanish when you go in there. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to hear a lot of Spanish, but you're also going to be treated with respect. You're also going to be treated like your family. So go over and see Gus at Cubita Cafe, 234 Franklin Avenue, and tell him the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Dejah, the story I've heard about you from our mutual friend, Pastor Adam Burt, for years.
Mm-hmm.
For years. He's like this amazing girl. She went through all this stuff, and she's killing it now. And he's a guy who I listen to. He's
Mm-hmm.
a guy who I trust. And then one day, you show up. And I was introduced to you by, Kevin, this is the girl. This is her.
Yeah.
This is her. Now, I knew your mother. I've seen her in church plenty of times. And then you show up, and boy, did you not disappoint.
Oh, thank you.
You have that bubbly personality, and I'm so glad that we had a chance to connect. But then this guy comes up to you in church. He's like, listen, I run a podcast, and I think you're perfect for it. So you got to tell me what's going through your head at that point.
I think for me, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. Because I don't do stuff like this. I'm very private.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, my story personally, I just don't think it's a big deal. Yes, it's a big deal, but I don't think it's something that's like, whoa, like, oh my God, breaking news. Because it happened to me, and like you grow from it and you keep on going on like throughout life, right? And so I was just like, when you asked me, I asked my mom, I asked my sister, I was asking everyone. I was like, what do I do? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to feel. And one of my mentors, Bianca, Dr. Neil, love her. She was just like, you should do it. She's like, you have such a powerful story. And I think like it may not impact everyone, but the people that need to hear it, it's going to like affect them like positively.
It's just
And I
that
was
one
just like,
person.
yeah.
It's just that's all it is
Yeah.
that one person. Forget about everybody else.
Yeah.
It's that one person who really needs to hear your message.
Oh, exactly. And so I think, being able to like, use this platform to like talk about, what happened to me at 2 and now where I am in life now, and, how I overcame like adversity and like, dealing with like burns on my face and, dealing with life in general, I think is something that was important to me to express. And, no one's life is perfect. That's one. And two, like, we can all learn things from different people and like their stories. And I think that's something that's really important because that can change your perspective on things that you never knew about before that you now know.
Well, so when you meet somebody else who's gone through some trauma,
Yeah,
and you've gone through some trauma, you automatically have a connection with them.
of course.
And that's a rare thing in this world when you automatically have a connection with somebody because you trauma bond.
Yeah.
So your story, with you having you in here is a little bit different because usually people's trauma happens later on in life, and I'm going to ask you how you grew up, where you grew up,
Yeah.
but it kind of melts right into the beginnings of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, where did you grow up?
Okay. Well, my parents met in the Navy in San Diego, California. So actually, I was born in San Diego, California.
And you moved to New Jersey from
Yeah.
the most beautiful place in the world. What does matter?
Blame them. I don't know.
we got to have a talk. We're going to have a talk after
No, I'm
this.
kidding. So we moved to New Jersey. My mom's parents, they lived in New Jersey. They lived in Maplewood, and we lived with them. And then the fire happened, and then my family and I, we moved to New York in Spanish Harlem, and I grew up on Pleasant Avenue, and then we moved to Madison Avenue, and then my dad's originally from Texas, and so he likes a little suburb and vibe and stuff like that, and so my dad and mom decided to move back to New Jersey. This is where my mom, was raised, and so we now live in Maplewood. I've been there for the last 12 years, and yeah.
So you pointed out something very important in your story. So you're living in Maplewood.
Mm-hmm.
You're 2 years old.
Yes, 2 years
I
old.
want to paint this picture. You're 2 years old. How many siblings are in the house?
At that moment, 2 more.
There's 2 more
Yeah.
siblings. So there's 3 of you in the house
Yes.
plus your parents. How much do you remember at the age of 2 about this devastating fire?
I don't remember anything except, the stories that, people tell me. I don't remember it, but like, you're like, oh, wow, like that's crazy, or I didn't know that before,
So tell me about the incident. So
Yeah.
you have this house fire. Tell me
Yes.
about the incident or what you've heard and what you know.
Yeah, so, moving from California to New Jersey, we lived with my grandparents in their house. And so on October 16th, at 12:01 a.m., my mom woke up to the smell of smoke, but also our cat Luna, like screeching. And so my mom woke up, and she woke up my father, and my siblings and I. We all shared our own little room, and she woke up my grandparents, and she was just like, something's going on, like there's a fire. And so my papa, he actually was a Marine. He, was just like, oh, I have to like go see what's going on and like
Save the world.
Yeah, save the kids. My grandbabies, I love them. And so, my mom and dad like try to help. And, they got my sister out, my titi, my aunt, my mom's sister. She, left the attic, so she was like fine. And, we were just like trying to figure out what happened. And the police are there, firemen are there, and no one knows where I am or where my little brother was. And my brother just turned 2 months prior to the fire.
You sure you're not Irish? Because you got Irish twins in your family. 9 months apart.
I know. So, it was devastating. It was like, what's going on? Like, shock, like
2
panic.
little children are missing. Yeah.
And so, basically, they found my brother, they got him, and no one knew where I was, which was just like, where's Dejah-Maia? Like, where is she? And so Fireman Bell, he came in, and, I had a bunk bed with my sister, and I slept at the bottom, and she slept on the top. I wasn't there. I was sleeping, and I just found this out maybe 5 years ago or so. I was underneath my brother's crib, sleeping, like throughout the entire, like,
was that normal for you to go underneath your brother's crib?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. And so that happened. And then, they got me out. They got my little brother out. And then the house went boom. And that was the end of the house. And so, we're on the scene. I'm, unconscious. They have to resuscitate me. They have to resuscitate my little brother. And, we finally get a pulse from both of us. And, we're all separated. So I went to the hospital in Livingston, St. Barnabas. Yes, I'm like, what? Yeah. And, everyone else went to Newark, Beth Israel, Summit Health, all over.
You're scattered to the wind.
Yes, all over. I was unconscious. Like, I didn't know what was going on, and I'm 2. Like, I can't talk. I mean, yes, I could talk, but, like, I can't advocate for myself. And so, that was, I don't know how I felt, but I'm pretty sure, like, now looking back at it, I'm like, that's kind of scary. Like, you don't know what's going on. You don't, you're knocked out, and yeah. And so, my brother who passed, he was transported to Newark with my dad and my sister, and who was with me, I think, in St. Barnabas was my papa, myself, and I think my aunt. And,
they're okay.
Aunt, yeah,
like they're fine.
They're fine.
They're fine.
My papa, not so much. They actually had to sedate him because he was like freaking out. He's like, what's going on? Like, where is everyone, And so, yeah. So my mom came over, saw me, and I was just unconscious. I was sedated, I guess you could say. I was in a medical coma.
A medically induced coma?
Yeah. And,
now your brother.
Yeah.
Your brother passes.
Yes.
It's the worst thing a parent could ever hope for.
Yeah.
Is a child passing. Do you mind sharing what he passed from?
Yeah. So at first he was fine, and out of the 2 of us, I was the one. When my parents saw me, the doctors told them that I would be a vegetable, and if I lived, like, that would be a miracle, but I would need help.
Now, burns, you got some burns on your forehead.
3 burns, yes.
Where is there anywhere else that's...
Yeah, I actually have some right here.
Yeah.
But they're very faint. And so, that happened. And then with my brother, things just started to go left. His body started to shut down, and they thought at first, like, oh my God, like, he's making movement, he's making progress. So basically, he died of, smoke inhalation, but also, brain dead. He was brain dead.
Yeah.
But no one knew until 3 days prior or after the fire happened.
Did he actually get burned?
No.
No, it's just the smoke.
Yep, just the smoke.
He's got 1-year-old lungs.
Yep.
They're not
healthy. They're not strong. They're healthy, but not strong.
You find out what, I've said this numerous times here, is you find out what real worry is the minute you become a parent.
Of course.
Because you can only know what real worry is when you love something more than you love yourself. And that's what happens when you're a parent. You may think you love people more than you love yourself. And I'm not downplaying your age or anything like that. But once you see your own flesh and blood lying there in the crib, your world changes.
Yeah.
So your family has to. How long did he last?
So the fire happened on October 16th. I think he was pronounced dead on the 19th.
On the 19th.
Yeah.
So he lasted 3 days as a 1-year-old.
Yep.
And I want everybody just to think about that for a minute. A 1-year-old baby who never got a shot.
No.
Never got a shot at life. Now, the focus, and this is the scary part. You're hurt.
Yeah.
You're in bad shape. You're probably touch and go. So your parents are not. They just lost one child. Now they got to focus on you, but they also got to grieve for the loss of their child. They're in a really tough situation. I hope you hug your parents a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Okay. So just to give you a window into, and I wasn't there, obviously, but I can sympathize with them because I am a father. I would give up my life freely for my children, and I'm sure your parents would give up their life freely for you and your siblings, and they were unable to.
Yeah.
So the enormous amount of guilt that came with that. Now, from what you heard, obviously you're 2 years old and you don't have any type of awareness about this yet. How long did you stay in the medically induced coma?
Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 2 months, actually, and it was touch and go. So actually, the day of my brother's funeral, the doctors called my parents, and he was buried the 21st. And they're like, you need to come right now. And my parents are like, what the hell's going on? Like, you're not telling us what's going on. We're all the way in Queens. What is going on with, like, my child in New Jersey? And I woke up and I was asking for my father. And I said, like, I said, Daddy. But it was touch and go. And, they're trying to track my brain activity. They're trying to see, like, how bad the scar tissue was, how bad my burns were. My brain activity.
Did anything fall on you, or?
I don't know. Like, it's so interesting because, we've spoken to the firemen because, it's important to, like, say thank you and, just hear their perspective. And to this day, like, there's so many things that are still unanswered that I would love to, like, know, but I don't. And my family that was there, that experienced, like, that pain and that trauma, there's only so much that they know, right? And so you just wonder why and you question so many things, but,
Well, there's a secondary effect.
Yeah.
There's a secondary effect that the pain and loss of your parents, your grandparents, is immeasurable.
Yeah.
So I will give you, because I've lost some children when I was working, the firemen and the policemen there took that home with them.
Of course, yes.
They took that home with them, and most of them are parents, and they have children, and they'll put that little baby's face on their own child, or your face on their child,
Yeah.
and they'll go in there, and it'll change them.
Yeah.
So there's ripple effects to all this stuff, and it's not just the immediate family who loses. It's everybody at the scene loses.
Yeah.
That your brother, Cesar, right?
Yep.
Your brother affected people more than people can possibly realize. So you come out of this coma, you're asking for your father. Obviously you made it.
Yeah,
You know?
thank God. But it was very touch and go. And so, during my time at the hospital, I would, be sleeping. And then other times, they were trying to get me therapy. So, like, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, like, all these different things to, like, get me back to normal to see where I was. And, this happened in 2001. 2002. That happened 22 years ago, right? And so, back then, what we knew then versus what we know now is it's so different. And so, they're just trying to see what's going on with me and what they can do. They're trying to give my parents, like, some type of, like, idea of, like, what's going on. Because, again, the prognosis that my parents got was your daughter will be a vegetable for the rest of her life and she will need help. And, thank God for my mom, my mom's mother. She was just like, like, we need to figure out something, like, right now because that's not happening. And she advocated for my parents because, they couldn't advocate for themselves because of everything that was going on. And, my mama was kind of like, the backbone for all of us. And, was just like, I have to advocate for my granddaughter because I just lost my grandson, and like, you know, we don't want what happened to him to happen to her. And there's a way throughout all of this. Like, you're telling me like she's gonna be a vegetable, but why is she doing X, Y, and Z? You know what I'm saying?
Well, she kept hope alive.
Yes.
You know, without hope, it's pointless.
Yeah.
It's pointless. And what else do they have but hope right now? Okay, they can't force you to get better.
No.
So all they can do is keep hope alive, especially giving hope to the doctors, because I'm sure the doctors have seen this stuff before. All right. I may even have been working the night that you were brought into the hospital, believe it or not, because 2002 I was working.
Yeah.
I was working midnights back then too. So I may even been working in the town next to you that you were brought in. And it's never easy to hear those things over the radio. I don't recall it, so there's a possibility I